Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah. A pleasure to meet y'all at last, and welcome back to Honest J. Nowak. So today's episode of HJN, I might as well go ahead and talk about a common injury that we happen to get at least once in our lives. Fractures. And why I want to bring that up now is because of the fact that, well, there have been a few things out there going on that happen to really relate to different injuries that we happen to get. And of course, fractures, though it may not be as common as a typical contusion, or in any case, just a simple red spot, flesh wound or not, it's really a big mystery. But in any case, bone fractures themselves, depending on the severity of the issue and depending on how they took place, they can be a really, really big problem. And a fracture is essentially just the breaking of the bone. If it snaps in half, if it goes and makes a small crack on it, which would be an incomplete fracture, if it pierces through the flesh, which would be known as a compound fracture, and of course there are a few other types of fractures that otherwise take place. But whatever the case, having a fracture can really damage your reputation. Now, of course, the main thing about the fracture and how you'd be able to tend to it would be to simply have a cast or some sort of pressure that can keep the bones together until it completely heals. And of course, it can take a long time just to heal completely, but it all depends on how fast your metabolism is, or how well your energy level is, and how much your health seems to rely on. And a fracture itself, they can normally be quite easy to repair. It would take just a few days for it to start, but in the end, weeks or even months could pass before it would be completely mended together. And trust me or not, every time a fracture happens, the bone tissue ends up much stronger than it did before it ended up breaking. And now, me personally, I haven't really gotten into an actual fracture, but of course, there were a few times to where I've had some bone damage, but at worst it would have been just an incomplete fracture. It would have been at a point where I wouldn't have had to have some sort of cast on or something that would in fact allow the bones to be properly mended together, because of course these incomplete fractures were just much smaller compared to average, and how people are able to break their bones from even certain impacts could happen. But of course, if you don't remember me talking about cola some time ago, then well, let me just clarify it for you. Cola can in fact damage bone tissue severely because of the combination of sugar, which can pretty much steal calcium, and it can also be further affected by orthophosphoric acid, which is also responsible for preventing the sugar from being vomited out. And so, I mean, how it's relevant is that, well, I mean, a bone fracture can easily be made if you happen to have a lot of cola in your diet. A lot of sugar, a lot of acids, a lot of any compounds really, which can in fact hinder your bone's ability to remain strong. Of course, having a certain diet on you and having some exercise can very much eliminate the probability of having a bone fracture. Of course, I never really had a complete bone fracture, but of course, I'm only 21 here in 2020. There's still a chance of me having that. Only time will tell. And so that's pretty much what I got to talk about fractures, and I don't really have any gripes about it, but It's just a common issue that we happen to have. And a lot of people seem to get it. So in that case, if you want to see more, go down to my channel. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.